What's up, guys? Welcome back to the shop. In today's video we're going to be using these bolt nuts and we're going to be incorporating them into a pretty interesting pattern. First thing I did was wash them with some muriatic acid to strip out the outer coating. I did that off screen, and that's why they went away yellow and came back this steel gray color. And we're going to put them into our steel canister. We've already spray painted with white paint, and that is to help get a nice easy release from the canister without it all welding together and then us having to grind it out. We're gonna fill in all the voids with some 1090 with 2% steel powder and make sure everything's mixed in there nice and evenly. As always, I like to press top to bottom on my very first press, make sure everything gets in there nice and tight. And the reason why I do that is because the rest of the canister is already welded and my caps with my crappy welds are gonna break. So I like to do that very first weld top to bottom, and that ensures that all the insides weld together. And as I work it, the caps naturally loosen up and break from the weld seams, and the billet starts wiggling out. And the only reason that the billet actually wiggles out is because of that white spray paint. It makes sure that the insides do not stick to the actual can, and it gives us a nice easy release. Well, as easy as it is trying to get a can out of a canister. Regardless of all the fiddling I do with it, it is a lot easier than having to grind the can off, and I don't have to wait for it to cool off to be able to get it out of the can, and I can go straight to working it down. The current plan for this guy is to work it down to a 1" by 1" block, and that's why I'm working it with my 1" kiss blocks to make sure that it is exactly 1" by 1". Now that I have everything squared out, I'm going to go ahead and straighten it with my longer dies. Now that I have everything cut up, I'm going to go on ahead and 4-way it, and I'm putting a little bit of 1080 in between to separate everything. If I don't put that 1080 in between, those four just weld back in together and we don't really get much of a pattern, if any pattern at all, because it's all the same material. So by doing this, we give it a little bit of contrast, and once we stack it, we'll have a repeatable pattern. As always, I like to spray it with some WD-40, and that just helps promote a better forge weld. We're going in straight with our angle blocks, and those are going to make sure that we have contact on all four sides to promote a better forge weld. There were little gaps here and there, and that made sure that nothing went out of shape or moved off to a different side. And with it forge welded together, we're going to go ahead and hit it with the 1" by 1" kiss blocks again and work the steel down to a 1" square rectangle. That way we can be able to cut it back into 4 and 4-way it again and get a little bit more contrast in that pattern. Again, we're gonna hit it with those angle dies and make sure that we have even compression all the way around on all 4 sides. That way we get a nice clean forge weld. And this will be our final 4-way. So I'm gonna work it down to a 1 inch by 1 inch, and then from there I'll be working it into the bar that we need for our tiling process, which I will explain later. Now that I got the square by square, we're gonna go on ahead and hit it with the 1/2 inch kiss blocks to work down and make ourselves a regular rectangular billet. Now, I could have gone with the 3/4, but it didn't really cross my mind at the time, but 3/4 would have made it a little bit easier to get the cuts that I needed versus the 1/2 inch that I ended up doing. So with my tiling process, I have to make sure that I get my sides incredibly clean, because these will be the ones that end up doing the majority of the forge weld whenever we cut it and stack it to be able to get the pattern out on the face, because right now our pattern is trapped on the inside of the bar. Alright guys, so this is my billet. All my pieces are cut. I'm gonna go over it real quick with you guys, that way you understand if you haven't seen a mosaic or haven't seen how it's done before. Originally, this side was the top and the bottom of my billet, and I used to go something like this, something like that. But the pattern is on the inside. That's where my mosaic-ish pattern is. And to be able to get that out, I cut it at a diagonal so that whenever I lay it like so, these outside faces are now being on the inside, and the mosaic is now going to be on the face, something like that. And that's how we're going to be able to reveal our mosaic pattern on the face of the knife versus it being on the spine or on the edges. That's pretty much how you do it. I have it cut at a 35 degree. You can cut pretty much any degree you want between 35 and 45. I've seen them done at 45. I like 35. It gives me a little bit of a steeper angle to be able to reveal more face, but either or works. And I'm gonna weld it onto a sacrificial piece of steel. That's pretty much just gonna make sure everything's aligned and nice and straight. And we're gonna go onto the forge and forge weld it. The forge weld went pretty quick. I ended up just using the longer dies. That way I made sure I had very nice and even contact throughout the entire billet. One thing I should have tried, but I didn't because I was low on time and I didn't want to wait for it to dry, was spraying it with some spray paint, and maybe that would have made this bottom piece just peel off versus the amount of struggle I'm having here. I don't know if that would work as well as it works in the canisters, but I think next time I try this, I'm going to give it a try, and hopefully it doesn't ruin the billet. Nonetheless, I did have a lot of trouble with getting this piece off, and ideally I could just go to a 2x72, but I was trying to save all my belts, so I figured I could get it off with the grinder, with the angle grinder, but realistically it was a very big pain in the ass to do it this way. And once I decided to go to the 2x72 with a 6-3 grit belt, and made quick work of the mild steel. And I ended up grinding the steel all the way up to 220. That way we could etch it and see what our pattern is looking like. Alright guys, and here is a final review of the pattern that I ended up making. It looks pretty cool, but due to all the individual nuts in there, I can't really use it for a knife edge, so I'll have to probably sand my it. Nonetheless, I think it looks very, very interesting, and it'll make a very cool looking knife. But that's all I got for you guys this week. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to finish a knife, but as always, thank you very much for watching. I greatly appreciate y'all, and I'll catch y'all next week with the full knife build.